What's up, Womack Nostalgia? Dave here in our podcast. What's going on in pop culture right now? Bunch of award show talk this week, of course, reacting to the Oscar nominations at last, as well as the Grammy winners this year. In addition to that, new music from EXO and XG, as well as the conclusion of The Night Manager Season 2 on Amazon. Make sure you subscribe, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, linktree.com/nostalgiapod. See links below. Let me know what's good, leave a comment, and let's get into it. What's up, Womack Nostalgia? Dave here with my 2026 Grammys reaction. Gonna go through the winners in the big categories here, talk about what the surprises were, what the big takeaways are here. Right off the bat, Bad Bunny won Album of the Year for Debut to Your Mouse Photos, of course, an historic win as a non-English album. And of course, Bunny was considered a top contender this year alongside Kendrick Lamar and Lady Gaga. And while I was expecting Kendrick to win, I think Bunny is the best overall selection just because it speaks most clearly to the musical and cultural moment at this current time. And of course, Bunny's about to follow this up with a Super Bowl performance in 1 week. It just makes the most sense for Bunny to win. And even if this is probably his second or third best album and not necessarily his best album, the fact that the Grammys didn't stop short and just pat themselves on the back for nominating Bunny in Album of the Year, but actually having him win as well, it's a, sometimes rare instance of the Grammys actually having their finger on the pulse. I think it's really justified, and I quite enjoyed it. Now, something that I have a big problem with is our Song of the Year winner, and that would be Billie Eilish for Wildflower. I talked about this as a possibility to look out for in a negative way when I gave my predictions last week. And simply put, Billie keeps winning, and she keeps winning in off-cycle moments. This is now Billie Eilish's third Song of the Year win, but I find this particularly egregious because when you look at the field, you look at what she was up against. To select Wildflower, which was the fourth or fifth single off Hit Me Hard and Soft, just doesn't make too much sense. Furthermore, Wildflower was released in the last Grammy period, when Billie's last album came out and kind of came and went at the Grammys last time. However, Wildflower was released as a single, as in the long tail of an album's release, was released as a late single in the beginning of 2025, thus putting it into the next Grammy period. I really fail to understand why a song that people listen to in the middle of 2024 is somehow eligible for this Grammys. Wasn't re-recorded, wasn't re-released, nothing like that. It just was put out as a single, but it came out on the album in the previous Grammy period. It doesn't make any sense. Now, of course, I'm sure Billie fans would point to Anxiety from Doechii getting the nomination this cycle as well. And that was a song that came out back in 2019 on YouTube, was then re-recorded and re-released in a different fashion, label-wise, when it took off. That's also questionable for sure, but not nearly the same case as what happened with Billie this year. And when you just think about who could have won Song of the Year, right? And the Record of the Year, Song of the Year noms were almost completely identical except for one difference. But Lady Gaga's Abracadabra, Rosé and Bruno Mars for Apathy, Bunny for Debut to Your Mouse Photos, K-pop Demon Hunters Golden, Luther, which won Record of the Year from Kendrick and SZA, Manchild from Sabrina Carpenter. I mean, all of those songs made more of an impact than Billie Eilish did with Wildflower, which is like a B-tier ballad from her. It really frustrated that I have to feel this way because I like Billie Eilish. I think she's clearly a great star, a great musician, and she gave a great speech, right? I think she's a very gracious winner. On the other hand, her team keeps submitting her for these categories, But yeah, I don't want to be rooting against Billie Eilish the way I am, but I'm really sick of a lot of these lesser songs of hers winning big four Grammys. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Kendrick and SZA winning for Record of the Year for Luther. I guess when you factor in the age of the sample, that the core of that song, perhaps it makes a little bit more of sense when you factor in Kendrick and SZA both being Grammy darlings, that sample being kind of a nod to like classic Grammy traditionalism. I guess you could see it for sure. And I talked about this as a top contender in the category. I was kind of maybe wishfully thinking that Apate would win Record of the Year and Golden would win Song of the Year. Those were my picks, but I definitely saw Luther as a top contender. It's not exactly a shock that it won. Best New Artist, in the end, it went to Olivia Dean, which is someone a lot of people threw out there, and she's clearly been a really rapid riser in terms of not just her status, but also how people think about her as an artist. And I picked Leon Thomas because he was also nominated for Album of the Year for Mutt, and the only person in this field to claim that, of course. But the Grammys do like to spread the wealth. It does not necessarily trickle down to smaller categories, historically. So not a surprise that Olivia Dean did end up winning. And one of the people she beat out for Best New Artist, Lola Young, perhaps surprisingly, won Best Pop Solo Performance for Messy, beating out Man-Child and Disease from Lady Gaga, Daisies from Bieber, and The Subway from Chappell Roan. Pretty cool, pretty surprising. The other pop performance category, pop duo group performance, went to Defying Gravity from Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. Speaks to the frustratingly long tail that the Grammy period often has, where we're now past already the second Wicked movie being not nearly as well received as the first one, and then we're nominating a song for the first movie and having it win. It just takes a while to get there. I would have liked Apate to win this personally, given that Defying Gravity is not necessarily a new song. Golden also would have made a lot of sense to win here. Nevertheless, pop vocal album did go to Mayhem and Gaga, which is probably just a consolation prize as far as she's concerned. I definitely think she was hoping for that Album of the Year. Dance Electronic album went to FKA Twigs with Eusexual, which is a cool win I'm happy about. Happy for Twigs for sure, but did come at the expense of Pink Panthers' Fancy That, which was my number 2 album of last year. That would have been my top choice. I also quite liked Fred Against 10 Days. Best Rap Album went to Kendrick Lamar for GNX, as expected. I was really hoping that Clips could have won for Let God Sort Him Out, just because Kendrick winning his third or fourth time in Best Rap Album is not nearly as impactful. But obviously I love GNX, so I can't really be mad. Clips did win for Best Rap Performance with Chains and Whips, which I'm really happy about. Kendrick is featured on that song, so that tells you at least a little bit. And then Best Rap Song went to TV Off from Kendrick off GNX, which was my pick. I think that was, just a flat out banger, man. Such a great track. Really just win. And Luther wins again for Melodic Rap Performance. Kehlani won Best R&B Performance for Folded, which I quite enjoyed. So yeah, nothing too shocking. I think having Album of the Year get correct is enough, I think, to feel pretty happy about the results, even if I'm very frustrated by this Billie Eilish dominance. Let me know, though, what did you think of the 2026 Grammy winners? Anyone jump out to you, good or bad, let me know. And for more music reviews and Grammy talk, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, Womack Nostalgia? Dave here, my 2026 Oscar nominations reaction. Of course, I gave my nominations predictions, got a lot right. Some things I did not see. I think there are some genuine surprises and minor shocks, you could say, in terms of what was nominated, what was not, the scope and scale across various movies. A lot to get into here. Right off the top, not surprising, but Warner Brothers, of course, really dominated the slate here with 30 nominations, tying their record from 2005. And that was led by not One Battle After Another, which had 13 nominations, good for the second most noms, but Sinners actually breaking the Oscar nominations record with 16 noms this year. Now, of course, one of those noms is the brand new category for Best Casting. So even if we took that away, Sinners still broke the record by one, and that was a long-standing record first set by All About Eve way back in the day, of course, 14, and then it was later matched by Titanic and La La Land. A really incredible performance and show of support across the craft categories, up and down the ballot. Really tremendous strength in the supporting actor categories as well. Sinners really showed up, and this might be a minor surprise to some because following what the Globes, were telegraphing, and of course we know how non-predictive the Golden Globes are, but the two best movie prizes at the Globes went to One Battle and Hamnet. and of course Sinners not winning one of those. But no, Sinners comes kind of off the top rope here to get the most nominations. I think it's pretty cool. And then following One Battle with 13, Sinners with 16, you have Frankenstein, Marty Supreme, and Sentimental Value all with 9 nominations, and Hamnet with 8 nominations. So those are your top contenders for sure. And I think what still is pretty clear is that One Battle should be seen as the favorite until proven otherwise. Of course, I'll do my full Oscar predictions category by category once we're a lot closer to the actual ceremony in mid-March. But for the time being, Sinners is back in the mix for sure. And it is pretty interesting that you have one studio having to campaign, 2 big frontrunners. And I don't think Hamnet has gone away from this fight, but it's pretty clear that it's probably towards the back here, at least for now. We'll see. I think it's a compelling field overall. After Warner Brothers with 30 nominations, second place is actually Neon with 18. Of course, that's a record for them. Really cool. And Neon, unsurprisingly, dominating in Best International Feature Film, getting most of those nominations there. But that actually leads me to one of my biggest surprises of the nominations. In Best International Feature Film, you had The Secret Agent from Brazil. It was just an accident from France, via Iran. Sentimental Value from Norway. All those 3, not surprises at all. We're predicting those. All 3 of those are Neon films, of course. You had Surat from Spain, which was kind of a late breaker, right? It made the Oscar long list in a lot of categories, and that really kind of put it really, really front and forward in terms of seeming like it was going to get into this category. And then the 5th nomination for International Feature Film is Tunisia's The Voice of Hind Rajab, which actually still does not have U.S. distribution. And what that means is that's coming at the expense of Neon's No Other Choice from Park Chan-wook in South Korea, a film I absolutely adored, my number 3 movie of 2025. I find this an incredibly baffling omission. It's not a complete surprise given Park's actual history at the Oscars, but I'm really disappointed by this. I think it's just really disappointing overall. After Neon, you have Netflix with 16 nominations, led by Frankenstein and Train Dreams, which are both in Best Picture. Once again, Netflix not truly in the mix for Best Picture contention. They are still trying to get that elusive top prize. After that, you have Focus Features with 13 off the strength of Hamnet, A24 with 11, thanks to Marty Supreme, Apple with 6, and Disney with 4, so on and so forth here. And just kind of, again, going through the actual categories and what jumped out here. And looking at Best Picture, I got most of these nominations, right? Most of these were to be expected, right? Train Dreams, Sinners, Sentimental Value, Secret Agent, One Battle After Another, Marty Supreme, Hamnet, Frankenstein. Everyone expected that. Begonia isn't here from Yorgos Lanthimos, movie I really liked. I had predicted that. I'm happy to see that one come through here. And then I had also expected it was just an accident to be here. But when I gave my nominations predictions, I did note that that would have made 3 international films in Best Picture, which is pretty strong, right? We know how international and diverse the Academy voting body has really gotten over the years. International film can truly contend up and down, the ballot these days. That being said, three noms in Best Picture hasn't happened yet. And it was just an accident, did not get through here. And Jafar Panahi was also not nominated Best Director. In its place, you have F1 from Apple and Joseph Kosinski nominated for Best Picture. And I'm not up in arms about that at all. I think that movie's fantastic. I had it in my, top 15 of the year. I really enjoyed the movie. And Kosinski's filmmaking abilities and the craft that going into a movie like that, I think is very credible and very impressive in its own right. And, when you think about this year's ballot, you don't have Wicked, which was the leading to Universal being the leading nominated studio last year, right? Wicked for Good completely blanked. No Ariana Grande, no Best Original Song nominations, no Cynthia Erivo, etc. And you also don't have Avatar Fire and Ash nominated in Best Picture. The Way of the Water and the first Avatar, of course, were. So F1 gets in. And, this is a bit more Producers Guild esque, criteria here, but I think it's pretty cool. I'm happy with it nonetheless. Best Actor, this is actually probably the most chalk of all the categories here. You have Chalamet, Leo, Ethan Hawke for Blue Moon, Michael B. Jordan, and Wagner Moura. And that was kind of becoming the 5 all along. I think the only one who was really in the mix here that didn't get through was Joel Edgerton for Train Dreams. Best Supporting Actor, also for the most part pretty similar, but one key surprise here, welcome surprise. Of course, we had Benicio del Toro and Sean Penn for One Battle, Stellan Skarsgård for Sentimental Value, Jacob Elordi for Frankenstein, and then Delroy Lindo from Sinners, which is a great nomination. He's been in the mix the last handful of years. Defy Bloods, I think, was one that didn't quite happen a few years back. This is really cool, and again, a great example of Sinners having a ton of strength. Best Actress, also with a key surprise here. The chalk selections, of course, Jessie Buckley for Hamnet, Rose Byrne for If I Had Legs I Kick You, Emma Stone for Begonia, which wasn't necessarily a lock, but Emma Stone's such an awards darling, it's not exactly surprising. You have Renata Reinsve for Sentimental Value, and then Kate Hudson is here for Song Sung Blue, which is a big surprise. She had been nominated at the Globes for what that was worth. This is, I think, maybe not as unforeseen if you were like nose to the grindstone, but perhaps maybe more of like a silly nomination. I was really pulling for Amanda Seyfried in The Testament of Anne Lee, against all odds. That did not happen. Supporting Actress, again, one minor surprise, I guess you could say. You have Tiana Taylor for One Battle, Igna Itzdottir Lilius, and Elle Fanning both for Sentimental Value, Amy Madigan for Weapons, and then Wumi Masaku for Sinners, again, showing that strength that this film has really demonstrated here. And if you look at all these acting nominations, you'll see a lot of international films and international performers nominated. You have the two supporting actresses from Sentimental Value, Reinsve for the lead actress. You have Vander Moora, of course, in Best Actor. None of them were nominated at the SAG Awards, and the SAG Awards have now dubbed the Actor Awards, of course. The SAG Awards have really demonstrated a kind of out-of-touchness, a very American focus to what they're nominating the last 5 years, and it's not actually as representative and predictive as it used to be, right? Back in the day, we would look to SAG a lot because actors made up the largest minority within the larger academy. That's no longer the case, clearly. They're just a bit out of step in terms of being a predictor. Best Animated Feature Film, Zootopia 2, K-Pop Demon Hunters, Arco, Little Amelie, or The Character of Rain. Those four really seem to be in there. And then the last spot, was it going to be Demon Slayer? Was it going to be Hosada Scarlet? Was it going to be Chainsaw Man? It ended up being Pixar's Elio, which is just a bit disappointing, right? I mean, even The Bad Guys 2 was in the mix here. Nevertheless, it is what it is. Best Director, I mean, 4 of these 5, again, pretty easy to predict, very, very, very chalk. Ryan Coogler for Sinners, Chloe Zhao for Hamnet, Paul Thomas Anderson for One Battle After Another, Joachim Trier for Sentimental Value. It always kind of felt like the leader in the clubhouse in terms of the international picks. Not a lock, I guess you could say. Jafar Panahi had been talked about a lot for It Was Just an Accident. That didn't happen. Guillermo del Toro, perhaps most surprising of all, for Frankenstein, did not happen. He's, of course, been a Academy fave for a long time. And Josh Safdie actually gets in with the last spot for Marty Supreme, which I think is very just. I'm very happy about that overall. In Best Documentary Feature Film, I just noticed two docs that weren't there. Laura Poitras' cover-up about Seymour Hersh I thought was a lock to be nominated, given her previous history in this category at the Oscars, including, of course, winning for Citizen 4 and Netflix being behind the movie. That did not happen. Also, 2,000 Meters to Androika, the spiritual sequel to 20 Days in Mariupol from Mykoslav Chernov, the Ukrainian filmmaker. Both of these Ukrainian war docs. Mariupol, of course, won a few years back, and I thought this kind of follow-up of sorts was going to get through as well. It did not get nominated. Best Documentary, that branch in terms of how the nominations happen, always a bit perplexing, I guess. It's really hard to necessarily narrow down on them. In Best Original Score, you have no Daniel Lopatin for Marty Supreme, which is incredibly disappointing and kind of continues a unfortunate trend we have with score lately, where the Seurat score also notably was not nominated this year. Seurat, an electronic-focused score. Challengers last year from Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. That score also not nominated last year, despite being the best score of last year. very classical, very traditionalist in terms of what's getting nominated and score these days. Just a bit disappointing, I guess you could say. It was just an accident, not coming through all the way in the end. I think a lot of people were confident in that because the last 3 Palme d'Or winners all were Best Picture and Best Director nominated. And of course, Anora won both of those categories last year, but it was just an accident. It was blanked in both in the end, despite still being nominated for Best International Feature Film and also Original Screenplay as well, which I think is still a nice look. Sinners getting this level of nomination, breaking the record handily. April film release, right? We continue to see the calendar get mixed up more and more. I hope this would continue. Of course, Everything Everywhere All at Once a few years back won Best Picture off a March release. I would like to see this continue. When it comes to Best Original Song, I think it's frankly a missed opportunity that K-Pop Demon Hunters only has 1 song nominated. And of course, that is Golden, which is the overwhelming favorite to win the category. But K-Pop Demon Hunters, the rare opportunity where Best Original Songs can be nominated that actually means something to the movie, of course, versus a song that plays on over the end credits and doesn't actually matter and it's very tacked on. The Diane Warren nomination dominance in this category I find just incredibly off-putting and frustrating because it's just so insignificant. But when you have a rare opportunity like the songs in Barbie, a few years back, or these songs in K-Pop Demon Hunters that feel so essential, I would like them to be honored a bit more than they ended up being. Nevertheless, I will be giving my full Oscar predictions in early March when we're closer to the ceremony. And of course, we've seen what happens with SAG and DGA, PGA, BAFTA, etc. We'll have all the predicting data we can possibly muster by then. So make sure you stick around for the actual official predictions. But what has jumped out to you about the nominations and who did and didn't get nominated? What stood out to you? Let me know. And for more movie reviews and award season talk, subscribe. And I'll see you next time. What's up, Welcome Back Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of XG's The Core, the first full-length album from this group. Of course, XG, 7-member group, has had a meteoric rise last year since the Awe EP, first official project of any substance, really came out from the group in November 2024. It was really off to the races, I think, for XG. Coachella look in 2025, just a pretty big rise in general. And of course, that was far from the first, XG music we had got, but it largely been a lot of singles and single albums and things like that. But what was noticeable to me with that last record was that XG, I think, I'd really found stuff that really worked for them sonically, musically, and you get that commitment to those strengths quite impressively on The Core. With their first full-length album, The Core, XG has clearly found their sonic and musical strengths and is quite impressively delivering on those with banger after banger. XG makes major dance and club pop hits and is able to weave in really compelling and strong rap talent into just a lot of songs that really grab you and really work. I also find it quite interesting with their general unique status as a Japanese managed act that is catering to a lot of K-pop fans. With such an established and successful sound after only a few years into the game, I find XG pretty peerless. They really don't have any competition in terms of groups that are doing what they're doing. And I just find that incredibly exciting because I think these songs are really cool and are really, really going to last. And frankly, it's hard not to be excited about what XG is doing because when the vision and the talent mesh as well as it is right now, the results are speaking for themselves. After a brief instrumental intro, you get the lead single, Gala, which is a dancey, up-tempo break beat, just a complete club record. And I think about back to Awe, right? Something Ain't Right, If You Know, You Know. Those are the songs for me that made XG completely click. And they took those songs and why those songs work and kept that going with The Core. And it's not that they're forgiving or forgetting the fact that they got some real good rappers in this group. No, that's still here as well. I think the rap verse shows up quite quickly on Gala, but I think it works quite well. I think the pre-chorus, that shift that it does is cool, and the chorus on this song is actually quite subtle. It's largely kind of letting the drums run and the instrumental do its thing, but this beat is just really good. Turn this Met to an X Gala is a great line as well. This is a song that really grew on me, and I'm quite impressed with. The next song, Rock the Boat, I think this one's also kind of a bop. Playful, light vocals here, almost R&B vibes, I guess you could say. The only problem I have with it, I think the chorus is just okay. It doesn't quite get there for me. I think the verses are quite good. And this is also one of the few times I think where an XG rap verse or verses feels maybe a bit tacked on. Usually it's quite seamless. Take My Breath. This is a big highlight for me. Again, dancey, up-tempo beat. Furthermore, this is like the XG found their sound. Like this is the song. The chorus, is it underwritten? I think it is. I need more than just that repetition, but everything else is so good about this song. I think the post-chorus vocals are actually quite interesting with that call and response, and the rap verses, they're levitating. Like they sound so good on this. I think No Good is a pretty noticeable downshift with these kind of snaps going on, more of a bedroom jam. Hypnotize, another big highlight for me. I love the way the beat builds over this rhythmic piano. Very impressive production. And when it finally does its drop, it's a very dancey beat. Kind of classic XG all over again. And I think these verses are just gliding all over this beat. And it's a sparse chorus again, but I think it's just working because these instrumentals are so impressive. And I like the outro breakdown you get at the end there. Up Now, very noticeable kick drum. Bit repetitive again on the hook. I think that's a clear theme with this album, but the verses pop a lot as that beat kind of settles into the background, and then the beat will come back up and get bigger again as the song ebbs and flows. It's pretty groovy. ORB obviously reads Bro. What a swing. What a really cool and compelling song because it's just out of nowhere. Punk guitar specifically out of nowhere. Moments on this remind you of like Blink-182 and Avril Lavigne, frankly. Pretty tame, it's not like the most punk thing ever. But calling your girls bros, saying fuck on this, first time this group's ever cursed. Cursing in general, not very common in the general K-pop space, J-pop space. I respect the swing. Do I necessarily want more of this from this group? No. But it's cool to hear this level of genre experimentation just because it really felt kind of out there. I respect it quite a bit. Four Seasons, acoustic guitar, definitely a slow one. Really not for me at all. And then the last track, the outro, PS 118, kind of like a jazz rap beat, very subtle, and it's rap verses only. And I think that's a really cool way to do an outro on a group album like this. Yeah, man, XG. I want to see them live really bad. Coachella last year was an obvious opportunity. They did Head in the Clouds in New York a few years ago. I would love them to go on a more formal tour of the States at some point. I'm hoping that happens this year. XG, to me, they're peerless. I don't really know who you would compare them to right now in terms of the types of music they're actually making. And that's a really exciting place to be. So let me know what you think about XG's The Core. What songs jumped out to you about this? Are you as excited and happy about this group's progress as I am? Let me know what you're thinking. And for more music reviews, more K-pop reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, Womack Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of EXO's 8th album, Reverse? I'm not sure exactly how you say it, but EXO is back with their first full-length album in 2 years since Exist came out. And this is notable because this is an EXO album without the full group. This is only 6 members of the group. Notably, Baekhyun, Chen, and Jimin are not here because of ongoing, contract issues with SM Entertainment. I think the state of SM in general, from a broad sense, not nearly as strong and operationally dominant as they've historically been as the more or less unchallenged leader traditionally in the K-pop label system. This is pretty significant because, of course, EXO is one of the signature male groups on SM with such a storied and long history at this point. And it's, hard to miss that Baekhyun, of course, released a very compelling solo album last year that I liked quite a bit. That being said, this is an album with the 6 guys here, including Kai, of course, who also released a solo last year that I didn't like nearly as much, to be fair. But now we're here, and I think EXO's 8th album, Reverse, however you say it, I think it's okay. I think the fact that you're missing 3 members is a little bit noticeable here in terms of just those vocal harmonies are not quite as strong and powerful as they usually are when EXO is at full strength. It has a bit of a different feel to it here. I think overall, pretty solid. When you talk about an 8th album from a K-pop group, a group with a history of 10 plus years like this group does, the fact that I think the music is as good as it is still, I think speaks a lot to this group's general longevity and talent. Overall, it's an album that's a bit too long. There's definitely some moments of trend chasing that just leaned itself into something that's a bit more generic and unlike an EXO strength. But the songs here that work, I think, are pretty compelling, and I think a handful of these songs have hit potential for sure. And again, for late period EXO and EXO that's missing 3 of their members, for what it is, I think it's still pretty good. I quite like that first song, Crown, with that big guitar and that drum drop. I think the chorus vocals in particular, just again, very big, very in your face, very loud, and kind of, I think, traditional SM, traditional EXO in a certain sense, a bit more of a throwback sound. In general, I find the song very enjoyable just because it's very high energy. The song Back It Up, I really like the horns under the surface of the bass on the chorus here. I think that's some really cool instrumental work going on there. I wish the chorus, though, was a bit meatier lyrically. It's just a little thin for me, but still the song's pretty high energy, and I think it's enjoyable. Crazy for me, this beat is just okay. I think it has just a little bit too much going on, frankly. And the chorus, again, it's just a bit sparse. I would like a little bit more structure to this song's chorus. But I like the tempo of the song as it picks up towards the outro. I think that's just a nice, fun way to just pick up the song. It's pretty cool. As it's going out, of course. Suffocate, this is like a dance pop jam. Definitely like a bit of a genre switch up here. And I think the moments where the beat slows down is a kind of a strange choice to me, because I think the core groove of this song is quite good, but it seems like it's a song that's trying to go in 2 different directions at times. Moonlight Shadows, one of the lyrics on this song is "We just vibin'," and I thought, frankly, that was pretty accurate. It's just a really silky song. Back Pocket, I think the sung chorus here is actually really great. One of my favorites on the whole album here. These really light, airy vocals, I think they work quite well. And the beat is also nice groove again, like those snares that pop, and a bit of hip hop delivery, you could say, in parts of this song. Touch and Go, I think this song is fine. Really, the beat's just nothing special to me. I think it's just not good enough, frankly. Flatline, I like the guitar line on this song mixed with the snares. I think the vocals pop quite nicely on the chorus again here. Overall, it's a bit more of a mid-tempo song. I think showing a decent range on the album, frankly, because it's setting us up, I think, nicely to slow it down even a bit further, of course, with the outro track, I'm Home, which is a traditional slow outro, which I think has some nice flourishes on the chorus, to be fair. Definitely caught my ear more than the average chorus generally does. So, for a late period, veteran group album, there's some stuff here. Does this really compare to the greatness of EXO demonstrated in their past? Is this particularly groundbreaking in any respect? No, of course not, frankly. I don't think it's like the most exciting release, but it's, I think, keeping the interest going. And frankly, I just hope that they can sort through those issues. It seems like from everything we know about those label issues that Baekhyun and the others are having, hopefully we can see that kind of win in the artist's favor, frankly, after what we just saw happen to New Jeans. These are different situations, of course, but it'd be nice if the artist could get a win. We'll see. Let me know what you think of the 8th album from EXO. What did you like most about it? Let me know. And for more music reviews, more K-pop reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, Womack Nostalgia Dave here with a review of The Night Manager Season 2 out in full on Amazon Prime Video and the BBC. This, of course, took a long time to get to our screens, 10 years since Season 1, which frankly came out in such a different period of TV, when the peak TV era, the era of the exciting nature of famous stars being on TV, was still a pretty novel idea. Now we're back with Season 2 after 6 episodes, and I quite enjoyed The Night Manager Season 2. It certainly exceeded my expectations after the truly long gap. Tonally, it comes across as a bit of a different show, but it's also quite inviting. You can jump right into the second season without having much of an attachment or memory of the first season. Tom Hiddleston is very capable as a spy leading man, and Hugh Laurie is also great as a charismatic villain after he makes his surprise return to the show. But the secret sauce of season 2 has to be Diego Calva's newcomer as Teddy. His energy and the presence he has, I think, really makes a strong impression. Plot-wise, nothing super surprising takes place, especially if you were expecting Hugh Laurie's character to return. I did think it was a bit telegraphed when he was noted as an executive producer of season 2 from episode 1. Nevertheless, the budget is so lavish with this show that it's really fun just to kind of go through the motions and watch everything take place. Of course, this is modern spycraft. It's not nearly as cinematically engaging or as interesting from a process standpoint as, say, like more classic, John le Carré stuff taking place in the 20th century. But I still kind of liked it for what it was, and at this point, I mean, whatever your flavor is of spy TV, it's kind of out there for you right now. We're kind of inundated with it, whether it's the agency, Central Intelligence, whether it's something with the more of a comedic undertone at times, like Slow Horses on Apple. You have the new Emilia Clarke series. There's spy stuff for everyone. And perhaps The Night Manager, now that it's moved over to Amazon, has a bit of a Jack Ryan flair to it this time around, and maybe visually it looks a bit similar. But I really enjoyed, I think, how kind of grounded this was in terms of realistic plotting, and I was actually quite surprised in a good way at where this second season concluded from a plot perspective in terms of good guys versus bad guys and who ends up winning out. And I think a lot of it felt frankly realistic in terms of the against all odds story that's taking place over the course of these 6 episodes. And Season 3 is currently in active development, not yet in pre-pro, but we know a third season is coming, and they've talked about a lot that Season 2 and 3 was kind of conceived as one big arc. So this era of The Night Manager is probably going to be felt like a pretty distinct, new chapter compared to that first season. Again, I really enjoyed Calva's performance. He gets to do a lot across the season, starting out as the villain before becoming an ally of Tom Hiddleston's Jonathan Pine. Liked the character a lot. I liked a lot of the settings we take place with. Supporting characters as well, like the local private investigator that Pine hires and allies with. Really liked him. Camilla Marone's character of Roxana, perhaps the most, I don't want to say intriguing, because I don't know how intriguing her character really was, but definitely the most challenging character, right? I think the payoff with her and what her character's motivations were, perhaps that could have used a bit more fleshing out. She's still on the board for season 3, but it wasn't the most satisfying character overall. Versus Diego Calva's character of Teddy, I really liked as he was layered in, his connection to Hugh Laurie's Roper was revealed, and the longing that he feels as a son who's not really loved by his father and all that stuff. I like that extra depth you get here. Livy Coleman, not really in the season all that much, which was kind of expected, but she gets some good scenes for the scenes that she does have. There's only a few of those. Indira Varma, her character, nothing too surprising about what happens with her character. You can kind of see her role in the story the entire time. But yeah, overall, enjoyable season. I thought it was really compulsively watchable, and the budget is just so lavish that, all this on-location shooting really, I think, goes a long way. It was a really fun time. Let me know what you think of Night Manager Season 2. What did you like most about it? And for more TV reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time. All right, that's going to do it for the pod this week. Next week, we have a lot of significant music to talk about. J. Cole, Joji, LMI. I'm going to catch up on some movies like The Rip and Send Help, as well as some other stuff like Arco and The Moment with Charlie XCX. A lot to get into this February. Make sure you subscribe. youtube.com/nostalgiapod, linktree.com/nostalgiapod. See the links below. Leave a comment. Let me know it's good, and I'll see you next week.